to this video for D100 Dungeon. This is the first in a series of videos I'm going to be making about the books for D100 Dungeon and the accessories that are available for it. So we're going to kickstart this series off with book 1. I'm going to take a look at book 1 and what it does and what D100 Dungeon the game is primarily all about. There are some variations in the products that you can get. So the books come in 4 different formats basically. The softback here, a hardback, this one, and also a collector's edition hardback, which is this one. So they've all got different things to know. One of them is that these first 2 books, they come printed on a plain white paper, basically 2-columned book with on a white background paper. But the premium copy, the collector's edition, comes in full colour on a silkier type of paper, more not quite glossy but silky, on a parchment background. So that's the sort of format of the books. The last format is a PDF, which is based, it has a white background as well. There is a review video I've done prior to this one which you can check out, and I'll put the links in the description below. So what is D100 Dungeon? Well, D100 Dungeon is a solo role-playing game. It was designed to take one adventurer through various different dungeons, performing quests and missions, and with the intention of starting off with a very weak adventurer, a new adventurer that's going to progress and get better and better as they play more and more games and delve more and more dungeons. The back of the book sums it up quite well. It says D100 Dungeon is a game in which you will steer an adventurer through underground caves and dungeons, looking for lost treasures and completing dangerous quests. With each game, your adventurer will gain wealth, recognition, and become stronger and increasingly skilled in their pursuits. All you will need to play D100 Dungeon is a pencil, an eraser, a few dice, and your imagination. Can you beat the dungeon? Okay, so we'll do a thumb through of the book so you get to see it. The first page shows the title, then there's some product information about other products, some of the legal jargon, and some special thanks section here, the dungeon song, and tips to survive in the dungeon. So if you've not read this, it's quite useful to have a quick read of that, because it might give you a few ideas about how to play the game. Okay, then we've got the contents page, and then we've got some rules here. So the first lot of rules are about, before playing the game, is to get some game sheets printed off and get them ready. So these are available for download on the MK Games website. I'll put a link in the description below to that. But it's useful to get the handy sheet and the monster abilities sheet printed off. You'll need an adventure sheet at least for one adventurer, and the combat track. You can start off with one combat track and some dungeon sheets. You might need a couple of them, one with an entrance on and potentially 1 or 2 without. And that's really what you need to get yourself started on the very first game. You're also going to need some dice. I think I've got some dice here. So you're going to need to get hold of a D6, an ordinary 6-sided dice. You're going to need a percentile dice and a units dice, a D10. These are 10-sided. So if you're not familiar with how they work, there's rules here that explain how they actually work and how you roll them. You're also going to need a pencil and an eraser, potentially you're potentially going to need a sharpener as well. And you could go for some coloured pencils, but we'll take a look at that in a moment. Okay, so that's basically what you need. Once you've got all those to hand and you know how the dice work and so forth, then you need to create your adventurer. So it's 6 quick steps. It doesn't take long. You get to choose strength, dexterity and intelligence. You get to either roll or choose a hero path. So if you've played role-playing games before, you'll get to choose things like will you be a warrior, a wizard or a rogue, and then you've got the race. You can be a dwarf, an elf or human. This is primarily in this base game. In a later expansion some extra hero paths are added and also different races that you can play. Okay, so then there's some skill bonuses and so forth. I'm not going to go into discussing how you create adventurers and go into details on rules. I will probably at the end of this series start playing the game and going through all the different rules and adding elements of the rules into another video where we'll actually take an adventure off onto some missions and perform those. But for this is just really a product review video. Okay, so yeah, there's things like skill bonuses. So we'll be able to beef up our adventurer when we make skill tests by filling out those details there. And there's a section about equipment, and then there's some finishing touches, so some extra details about your abilities and so forth. So once you've got your adventurer built, then it's time then to go off to the dungeon. Okay, and what you would do is you would follow the quest information on table Q, and the first quest that you would perform, you perform quests 1 to 5 to get your adventurer started, get them a bit beefed up with a bit of experience and a bit of equipment, some armour and maybe a weapon or two, some potions, get a bit of gold behind you as well. You would build up on those first 5 missions. Once you've completed those first 5 missions, then you roll randomly on this table. And then the challenge gets a little bit more harder then, because you're then being forced to play certain quests that you might not quite be ready for. But you can still have fun, you can still gain a bit of experience by playing those as well. But when you're playing the game, you'll be asked to make some tests. And when you're testing, you can end up actually, if you make some good rolls, you can end up gaining experience that way. So you'll be able to progress your character, your adventure a little bit that way. There's 2 types of statistics that are involved: primary and adjusted characteristics. So when you're playing the game, some of the items that you equip here in this section on the front of the adventure sheet may give bonuses to certain statistics, and you get to beef them up as well. So equipment can boost your adventurer. There's things like damage, how much damage you do in combat, the amount of armour you're wearing, shields that you can carry will help against protecting and fighting off damage that you get dealt, and defence as well. You've got a defence value that will allow you to negate a certain amount of damage depending on your defence value. And you've got things like reputation, fate points and life points. Life points allow you to cheat death. Fate points allow you to make different to re-roll some of your dice. So you'd spend a fate point, and if you'd say rolled the d6 and wanted to sort of try and get a better result, you could re-roll that. And then there's a section here about the equipment, so how you equip items, where you place them either on the front or the back of the adventure sheet, whether they're one-handed or two-handed, whether they are ranged or hand-to-hand weapons, and then every so often you might be asked to make a belt check. So when you make a belt check, anything that's stored in your belt, so you can put items in a belt slot. So on the front of the adventure sheet, this is where all your equipment would go that's equipped, and any items in your belt slot that's equipped as well. you can put things in like potions or scrolls so that you can quickly grab them during combat and use those. Anything else that's not equipped is in your backpack slots on the back of the adventure sheet. And so if you was at times in the game you might fall over, you might be asked to make a belt check, and you roll a d10, and anything in those belt slots that that you rolled would be destroyed. They would have got damaged and got destroyed. So there's things like belt checks. Item damage, so some of the equipped item like weapons and armour can actually get damaged so that they actually get destroyed. And what you'll need to do is, while you're playing, once you've finished the quest, you'll have to go off to a town and repair those damaged items. So they take pips of damage. So when you've taken 5 pips of damage, then your item is absolutely knackered and destroyed, and you have to remove it from the adventure sheet. There's a combat track, so as you defeat monsters, when you encounter a monster in the game, you will add it to this combat track. And say you start a quest and you've filled out that many monsters, the next time you play another quest you carry on. So these dungeon tracks, they carry on from one quest to another. When you've completed one, then you begin a brand new dungeon track, combat track. And so what you do is you encounter a monster and then you fill out the monster's details there, keep a record of what monsters you've killed, and if you kill it, there's certain rewards that you gain as you come to them. So if the very first monster we kill there, we would gain 100 gold pieces, but on this line here, if we killed a monster on that line, then we would actually gain +5 skill, which is a random skill that you would roll for. So there's ways of gaining experience and getting a bit better there. At the end of the combat track, then you've got things like gains to primary dexterity, strength, intelligence, health points, reputation, fate points and life points. So you're constantly, the more monsters you face and are able to actually destroy and kill, the more you will actually gain. If you end up, monsters can also escape combat as well, so if they end up escaping combat, then they come off of this track, so you wouldn't have actually defeated them. And if you end up escaping from a monster, it also gets removed from this track as well. So there's different ways of gaining experience through different ways. Okay, so that explains that. Then combat. So basically combat is simultaneous with you and the monster. So you face a monster, you both, although you make a combat roll first, the monster is also attacking you at exactly the same moment. So you then make rolls. If you hit the monster, you roll for damage, roll for location. So there's a location chart here, and you would go through those locations, and if you hit, some of them have got bonuses or minuses to damage. So if you hit a monster in combat, you roll for damage, you roll the location, and you add up all the damage that you're scoring, and then deduct the monster's defense value from that value, and then that's the amount of damage that the monster takes. There's no unarmed combat at this stage in the game. In a later expansion there is a form of martial arts that's introduced, which we'll look at when we get to that book. So in the base game there's no unarmed combat. You can take, instead of attacking in combat, you can actually perform some combat actions, like you could cast a spell, or you could change some equipped items. Equipped items mainly apply to weapons and potions that you can shifty around your equipped section on the adventure sheet. If you've got an item in your belt, you can use any number of those in your belt. So say you had 3 potions of something in your belt, it might be a potion of strength, a potion of dexterity and a healing potion. You could technically take a combat action and swallow all 3 potions and gain the benefits of all of those. And then there's options to escape your monster. There's what the monster does at the start of the combat is their reaction, and you can also deflect damage to armor. So if a monster attacks you and hits you with some points of damage, you can actually up to 2 points of that damage can actually be deflected to armour. So as well as the armour giving you an armour bonus that is deducted from the damage, you can also deflect more. You can mitigate more damage away from yourself and let it absorb into the armour itself, but the armour gets damaged that way, so it's a bit risky. Okay, and then there's the defense bonus, which it gives you, the idea of defense is that you're able to maneuver better in certain types of armor. You're able to dodge blows, deflect blows without taking damage. So the higher your defense value, the less damage that you'll potentially take in combat. And then monsters' characteristics. So like the adventurer has a bunch of characteristics, so do monsters, and there's a bit of a chart there that shows those, as well as having things like attack values and defense and damage values and health point values. They also have a series of abilities as well that aid them in combat. So for instance, some monsters are able to attack more than once in a round of combat. Some of them have actually got dark magic abilities, so they can cast spells at the beginning of combat. And then you've got things like disease. Some monsters will inflict disease on you. Some are flying, so there's a penalty if you're attacking a flying monster. Some of them attack in packs, so they might be 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different monsters in a pack, and they all attack as one. So you make one attack roll for them, but how you deal damage and how they progress in combat changes depending on the number that they've got. So if there's a lot of them, they've got more of a chance of actually hitting you. As you slowly defeat them, then they become less and less able to hit you in combat, if you like. So there's quite a few different special abilities. When you've done those first 5 training missions, then you get to choose a quest, and this section tells you about how you choose a quest, and then there's a turn sequence to follow. So as well as everything else in the dungeon, time is an important factor. So the first thing you need to do is you need to shade 1 pip off on the time track. So let's have a look at the time track. So basically this is your time track section here on the adventure sheet. So the first time you shade a pip off, you need to spend some oil. You need to light your way. Every adventurer begins with a lantern and a way of keeping track of the amount of oil that they've got over here. So these little symbols above, they all mean something. So on the first hour of the dungeon, you shade that in. You're going to need to light your lantern. Then the next one, nothing needs to be done. The next one shows a wandering monster icon with a number around it. So when you check that one off, you then have to roll and see whether you encounter a wandering monster, and the more the time ticks away, the more likely you will actually encounter a wandering monster. There's some more icons there to tell you to tick off some oil, and there's also food as well, so you need to eat every 12 hours in the dungeon. Okay, if you don't, there's penalties as well. If you don't light your lantern, then you're operating in the darkness really, and you have penalties to your primary abilities as well. So it's important to enter the dungeon well equipped to make sure you've got plenty of those supplies. Okay, so that's the first bit, and then it's exits. So when you're playing the game, what you do is you have a dungeon sheet like that, and you will then find an exit. So you will roll on table M at the start of the game, and you'll copy one of these map diagrams onto this square here where the dungeon entrance is. And then what you do is you orientate the map. So if I had an entrance there and I wanted to go that way, then that's fine. I would then roll on table M, add the map there, and then I would walk through into that area. If I was going that way with an area, then I would orientate the map that way, draw the new area in that way, and then I'd walk in that way. So that's quite an interesting, important mechanic of the game. And the different areas are different colours. So this is where we get back to where we said about whether you want to have some coloured pencils or pens. So if you had some 4 colours, you would need yellow, red, green and blue coloured pencils. And what you do is, as you navigate around on this map, you would either colour in the walls, or you'd make a little note in the top corner about what dungeon area you was in, what colour it was. So instead of needing to do that, you could actually use a coloured pen or pencil to mark that off. Okay, so there is a bit of a sketch of what a dungeon diagram might look like. Let's take a look at that in the book. So there's a dungeon entrance. So we went into there, we went into a green room, and then when we took the exit, we rolled and we got this yellow area. We turned the map that way to then draw that yellow area in, then the green area, and so forth. So that's kind of like a bit of what your dungeons may end up looking like. Every time you play the game, of course, you're going to get different roles, so you're going to get a different dungeon layout as well. The red areas that you come across are encounter areas. So what you would do is you would enter that area and then you would roll immediately for a monster on the encounter table. So all these, once you're playing the game, all the game is handled with this section of the rules, which is the tables. You might need to refer back to some of the rules, but this is how the game plays, by using these tables to make die rolls on. Okay, so everything's quite random in the game. If you found some armour, you would roll on table A for armour, and it would tell you in the instructions of the book that roll on table A, see what you get. Okay, so that's about your exits. Some of the exits have doors, so you're going to need to work out how to open those doors, and you've got things like lock picks you might need for a locked door or a locked chest that you come into game. So down here we've got a section for picks where you'll be able to store your lock picks. You might find some keys in the dungeon, or a lever for doors that are operated by levers somewhere else in the dungeon. You might have found that lever and marked it off on these tracks here, so you keep track of those, and if you come across a locked door and you've got some keys, there's a chance that one of those keys might fit the lock, and so the rules work out how that happens as well. Okay, so as well as locked doors, trap lock doors, jam doors, there's also lever doors, there's trap doors, there's magic doors as well. So magic doors, you're going to need the open magic spell to be able to open them, or a scroll. So there's spells, you can find spells and scrolls. If you're not a magic user, then you're going to have to rely on open magic scrolls rather than the spell itself. And then section turn 3 of the book is all about, once you've chosen an exit, is to actually move into that exit. If you haven't got the exit mapped, then you need to roll on table M and map it. And there's details about how to work out how to record that information on your dungeon sheet as well. There. Okay, and then finally, when you've mapped the area and you're in the area and you've dealt with anything to do with the area, like the encounter, or green areas are geographic areas. So geographic areas, you get to roll on table G, and there's all kinds of things on there like traps, there's barrels to investigate, there's a rope bridge, lava you might come across, a trapped chest there, you might come across a river, some chasms, a fountain, even a magical tree. There might be a magical tree there. And so when you enter a green area, you roll on the geographic and follow its instructions there. So when you've done all that and you get to section 4 of the turn, phase 4, then you may search that area. Okay, and when you search that, you roll on a find table to see what you discover. And there's all sorts of things that you might come across. You might get attacked by a wandering monster, or you might find some armour, you might find a spell, or you might get bitten by a snake or a scorpion and suffer some disease or some poison damage from rotting corpses and so forth. Okay, so this section's all about the time track, which we kind of sort of covered a little bit about. There's a roll to see if you find a wandering monster. If you don't eat, you automatically lose 5 health points, and if you don't have any oil, then if you don't have any oil and you don't light your lantern, then your strength, dex and intelligence are reduced by 20 until you actually light a new lantern. Okay, there's a section here about how you succeed and you fail quests. The quests have objectives. They're quite specific, so to complete a quest it might say loot 3 monster parts. So when you attack a monster, it might offer up as a reward body parts of it. So one of the beginning quests is to loot 3 monster parts, and it's quite specific. If it says loot, you have to loot it from a monster. You have to attack a monster, defeat a monster, and actually loot that monster to actually count that as completing a quest. Collect. So you can collect items as well. Some quests will allow you to collect an item. It might say collect an item from a treasure table, collect a healing potion from a treasure table, for instance. So they do not need to be looted, but they can be. So collect is quite universal. They allow you to either loot or just find one. Just find the item in the dungeon itself. Some other quest objectives are to explore certain areas or features within the dungeon. It might say explore 5 yellow areas, meaning that you need to add 5 yellow areas to the dungeon sheet, to this sheet here. Once you've put 5 yellow items down on your dungeon sheet, then you've completed that objective. It might be a special feature. It might say you need to find a staircase going down to a lower level, in which case you need to explore until you find that special feature. Some other quests might tell you to kill a specific monster, so that's pretty self-explanatory. You need to roll for that monster on an encounter table. So there's a table called Table E, Encounter. So when you encounter a monster in a game, you roll on this table. Some quests have an encounter modifier, so if you're playing a quest that says the encounter modifier is -20, then you would roll the D100 and then you would deduct 20 from that result, so that's a 56, and then 56 because I rolled 76, and so we would have encountered tricksters. So some quests will ask you to kill specific monsters. It might even give you a specific monster to actually face and kill. Then there's things called objective items. They are rolled on table T. So one of the table T's, there's 3 treasure tables. Treasure table A, B and C, and results 16 to 46 are objective items. So they mean you've found actually something specific to complete in the quest. And there's also objective areas, which are blue rooms. So blue areas, I shouldn't say rooms, they're areas. Blue areas are quest objective areas. So some quests have them, some quests don't. If you come across a quest that doesn't mention an objective area, then they're just treated as empty rooms. When you search rooms, you do get bonuses to these type of areas. So there's a +20 bonus for that. That's shown in the search result there. So when you search, if you search in a yellow area, you get +0. If you search in a red area, it's +10. A green area, +5, and blue area, +20. And that means you roll a D100 when you're searching on table F, and then you add that bonus to that roll. So the way table F works is the lower part of the table is not so good results, and the higher end of the table are better results. So you're more likely to get a better find. You'll find something more beneficial in these blue areas because they give a plus 20 to the find table. Okay, so that's all about completing quests. If you fail a quest, there's also penalties, and you choose when you fail a quest. So when you feel like you can't carry on anymore in the dungeon, sometimes it's better to just cut your losses and quit and actually fail the quest, and that's your choice, and there's instructions there on how to do it. But there is penalties. Sometimes you'll lose a bit of skill benefit. Sometimes it'll be detrimental to your main characteristics like strength, dex, intelligence and health points. You'll lose points to those. You might even lose reputation. And the quests themselves, they give you an idea of, if you're going to fail the quest, what you're actually going to lose by it. So for instance, result 73 on the quest table says wizard's ingredients. It's got that encounter modifier of plus 10, so every time we roll on table E we add plus 10 to it. It says we get 2,200 gold if we're successful at the quest, but if we fail it then we lose 1 intelligent point. So sometimes you've got to weigh up whether it's worth carrying on with the quest or not. In a lot of cases, if you're really struggling and there's no end in sight, rather than just carry on hacking your way through the dungeon, sometimes it's better to just say, oh, I'm going to fail this quest and we'll try it again at another time. Just take the penalty. And then, because after each quest what you get to do is you get to go to a town and perform before your next quest phase. So this is basically where you're going to spend your time between quests, getting everything back up to speed. So you're going to be getting your health points. You're going to go to a healer, get your health points restored down here. You might want to get some items repaired. You might have some damaged items. You might have some items to sell. You might have a backpack full of items and that you want to sell, and you want to get some gold in for that. There's also things like training, so you might want to do a bit of training between quests, try and improve some of your experience and get a bit of more experience on there. You can also look for items that are in the market, treasured items and weapons and armour, and also you can buy essential items in the needed section. So you can go to table N. Table N is where you are able to stock up on the quite basic equipment but quite needed equipment. So for instance, it give you the option to buy some lockpicks, some food, some oil, some potions that give you bonuses to your stats and to your damage values. You might want to be able to heal and remove disease and poison and heal yourself in the middle of a quest, so you need potions for that. You're going to need, if you've not got the spell, you're going to need that scroll of open magic, otherwise you could get stuck in the dungeon. And there's some other things as well there, like a potion of lesser fate, which gives you a bonus when you roll on on tables, and also a scroll of resurrection. So these are scrolls are the equivalent of spells. So there's a few spells in the spell book that are available in the game. There's things like let's have a look. There's things like healing, heal, fire blast. You can do damage automatically to monsters. Fireball, ice storm. There's you could get to deal 1d10 of damage to a monster at the start of the next combat round. You can gain some bonuses to your statistics for the next die roll that you make, and so forth. So there's different spells that you can perform there as well, and they're also available in scroll form as well. Okay, and then as well as the training, we mentioned the training, you can heal, repair, sell items, buy needed items, search the markets, do some training, do some magic tuition where you can add spells to your spell book, and you can also do section 9, which is empire building. So if you've got a bit of spare cash, you can invest money, some gold pieces, and try and earn a bit of extra money through investments as well. Okay, there's a little bit detail there about mapping. So one of the things that a lot of people are a bit unsure on is how you get hemmed into the dungeon. So you might find a time where there are no exits available to the adventurer. Everywhere is a solid wall. If there's a door that's blocking the dungeon, then it still offers a potential way for you to get through the dungeon. Now let's say you was in a dungeon and every single exit led to a solid wall. So you can see there in that example there, that is going to a solid wall. Then if every exit is like that and there's no available doors for you to do, you can draw a secret passage through to another part of the dungeon. So other than that, if there is a door there, just because you can't open it, it doesn't mean to say that you can't that you are able to have access to a secret passage. So if you forget your open scrolls, you've got a magic door blocking your way, then unfortunately you're forced to fail the quest. So there is some downsides to not being prepared, so you need to make sure you're quite well prepared. And then when you get onto page 34, then it's all about the tables. So it's just a case of following the rules and following the examples, just following the details that are written down in the instructions from the different sections that you roll on. Okay, so we'll just have a quick look at the different tables. So one thing to just really point out is that all these tables are pretty much listed alphabetically. So if you come across to roll on table E for encounter, then you can just turn to E for encounter. They're listed alphabetically. So we've got things like B for boosts, C for curses, D for doors, E for encounters, G for geographic, and so on and so on. So it's quite easy to sort of get through the book and find what page you need quite quickly. Okay, so getting back to armour, what you'll do is you might find some armour and you get to roll on the armour table. Armour has either an A or an S value. The S value is for shields. They work a little bit differently in the game. We'll take a look at that in a later video. But basically the armour value is either 0, 1, 2, 3 or 4, and it's a direct deduction off of damage. So if a monster damages you for 6 damage and you're wearing armour at that location, then you're only going to be taking the 2 damage because the armour's automatically blocked 4 points of that damage. If you then in combat, as we said before, you can then mitigate another 2 damage to each piece of equipment. So you could then, in that case, if you was wearing an armour of 4, you could actually mitigate the last 2 points of damage that you took from that 6 damage and deal it directly in damage to the armour itself. So the armour would take 2 pips of damage. So there's some sort of like fun little mechanics in there where you can jiggle around some of the like the effects of the game, so forth. Okay, and then shields work a little bit differently, but I didn't really want to make this a rules video. Okay, sometimes you'll get to roll on the boosts table. It might be you found a magic shrine or something like that, and you've actually gained something, and maybe a spell's cast on you, so you get to roll on table B. Table C is curses. So if you're a magic user and you fail your spell tests, you need to roll on this, and there's some pretty devastating things that can happen to you. When I designed the magic system, I didn't really want a Harry Potter style magic game. I wanted it to be quite dark and quite dangerous to use, magic to be used wisely rather than frivolously. So you can end up in the magic system in the game coming a bit unstuck if you're not too careful. When I play this game in a later video, I will create a magic user, primarily just to show its benefits as well as its negatives as well. Okay, so that's curses. Sometimes you might get cursed because you've come across an altar or something like that in the game as well, so it's not only through magic use. Then this is the doors table. So as you come across doors in the game, you'll be generating them and seeing how they're opened and what you need to do to get them open. Some of them are open automatically. Then there's the encounter table. Monsters have an attack value, a defense value, a damage value, health points value, and a K reward. So if you defeat the monster, these are the tables that you're able to roll on. I think one of them, the Ghostman, the zombies, they carry nothing with them, so they're not all going to give you a reward. A giant snake, you manage to find 1d100 gold pieces, and there's a list of all their monster abilities there as well that impact combat in some way. And we've got the find table that you use through searching, geographic table, which is a few pages long, and all the instructions there that you might come across when you are in a green area. Okay, we've got a hero path section there, so you can either roll for a hero path when you create an adventurer, and there's details of things like experience stars as well, which give you bonuses to your experience. And then you've got the items table as well, where you might have to roll on table I for certain quests, or you might need to or you might prefer to try and look for items like lockpicks or some keys and so forth. If you've got a lot of keys, if you've got a lot of locked doors in the dungeon, rather than get hemmed in, if you get the opportunity to roll on table I, might be quite an advantage to do that. This is about the empire building table, where you'll be rolling to see whether you gain or lose investment in those. Some items are legendary, so you might find a legendary sword or piece of armour. You get to roll on this table and it gives you adjustments. So where you store these items here, with the items with these damage tracks on them, you might get bonuses to strength, dex, int and health points and so forth. You get to add them up at the bottom and then transfer them over here, where it's going to improve your primary value a little bit, depending on the equipment that you're wearing. So things will become a bit easier because you've got legendary magic items that you're wearing. And you've got the mapping table. Okay, there's some of the maps have got doors on them that you need to be aware of. There's your needed table that we looked at before, and then the parts table. So when you play the first quest, you're going to have to loot 3 monster parts, and so you'll be rolling on this table to try and find them. Okay, and then the quest table, and we've got the race table. So when you create your adventurer, there's some information there to follow. The spell table, 3 treasure tables with all sorts of things on. This is where, if you get to roll on these, you get to things like elixirs, where you'll actually gain bonuses to your primary strength. So they're not added as a temporary thing, they're permanent, more permanent. You've got things like legendary rings and necklaces that you might come across, magical necklaces and so forth. Okay, and then we've got values. So this is really to help with working out the cost of damaged items. So if items are damaged, you look up their pip value at the top there, and then their base value, and then you cross-reference in it and actually tell you how much that item's worth. Because as items get damaged, they become less of less value, basically, because they are damaged. So you need to a quick and easy way of working that out. And then finally you've got the weapons table with all manner of different weapons that you can equip to your adventurer. So you've got things like a throwing axe, a glaive, a bill. So there's some, if you're not familiar with what these weapons are, look them up on the internet, because some of them are quite interesting weapons. Yes, so there's them. Then we've got that handy sheet and the monster abilities, and finally the adventure sheet and the combat track and the dungeon sheet. So hope you enjoyed this video. It's a bit longer than I expected, but I think we've covered everything there. And do check out the next video. In the next video we'll be looking at the Adventurer's Companion. Okay, so thanks for watching and take care. Bye for now.